What's up, guys and gals, and welcome to another Sunny review. And today we're going to take a look at Dead by Daylight here on the Nintendo Switch. And after being introduced to this type of genre, playing Friday the 13th on the Switch and seeing the potential and the fun, I felt like I had to check this out because this one seems to have mostly universal praise. But before I get started, sub to the channel for more game reviews and gameplay videos, and hit that like button, but only if you enjoy the video. But without further ado, let's take a peek under the hood at Dead by Daylight here on the Nintendo Switch. So Dead by Daylight is a full multiplayer online game where there's one person who plays the killer and four others who play as the survivors. The premise of the game is that you're one of the four survivors and you're trying to escape the one killer that is controlled by a player by escaping this large procedurally generated area you're trapped in. The killer's role is to essentially kill you and the three others and stop you and win the match for himself. The survivor's job is to fix and repair 5 generators to power 2 gates that can potentially lead you out and escape. All the while, the killer's job is going to be to slash you, hook you, and hope you die so no one escapes. The generators and the hooks are all placed at random in the match, so there is no memorizing the locations on a permanent basis. But we're going to start off with the more in-depth mechanics and gameplay of the survivors and what specifically you want to accomplish to be victorious with them. And to start off, the one thing that I like about this game versus the other game, Friday the 13th, is that as the survivor, you're not just encouraged to work together, but you're rewarded for it. So to explain this a little further, the game features these blood points that you earn for doing any little action that is useful. So if you heal a teammate or if you escape the killer in the heat of the moment, you gain this currency, and this currency helps build your character or characters that I'll explain a little further in the video. But when you're playing as a survivor, working together, in my opinion, is going to be key. Now, you don't have to work together. You can do your own thing and not care about others. But if you want to win and have the potential for more blood points, it's in your best interest to work together. And not just that, it creates, in my opinion, a mentality around the community that working together is best for everyone involved. And that, in my opinion, is how this game stands above its competition in mechanics. When a fellow survivor gets hooked by the killer, you want to rescue him because having an extra body run around for the killer to have to worry about just frees you up. But not just that, the game rewards you in blood points for freeing your fellow survivor. And with those blood points, you can then improve your own character. So all in all, it's beneficial for all parties involved to work together. But as for other ways to work together, healing your fellow survivor is going to be key. So in order for a killer to be able to hook you, he has to hit you twice with his main weapon. One shot will leave you limping around, the second shot knocks you to the ground, and the killer is now free to pick you up and hook you. When you're hooked, this is how you lose the game. If your health bar goes all the way down, you're then taken into the void and you're out of the match. So keeping each other healed is going to be key, because after you've rescued from a hook, you're still injured from before. So healing you keeps you back up at 100% and leaves the killer needing to slash you twice again. But the biggest thing and the only way to escape is using the generators. These generators are not only how you escape, but also the riskiest thing you can do as a survivor. When you're trying to repair a generator, you're going to get these skill checks. Now, this is a mini game in which you have to press the left bumper in the correct time to continue to work on the generator freely. If you miss the timing of this, not only do you slightly regress on the repair meter of the generator, but you alert the whole map, including the killer, to your location, leaving you now in a risk versus reward scenario if you should continue working on this or flee because you might be worried the killer is honing in on your location. I love this aspect of the game, but this is where my first complaint of Dead by Daylight is with the Switch. Now, I don't know if this was my internet or what, but as someone who has played this on the PC for a decent amount of hours, the timing of this little mini game was off in comparison to the PC. This could be a lot of factors, but it wasn't instant and there was a slight delay, which led me to failing this a bunch, versus when on the PC I rarely ever failed. Now, I tried to get used to the timing, but it almost seemed like the timing was different and varied from match to match. So this part was a bit frustrating, but I do acknowledge that this could be a user error. As for other things you do as a survivor, you can search the areas for medkits to heal your fellow survivors or toolboxes that help you repair the generator slightly quicker. But when you're being chased by the killer, there's also some ways to combat him and escaping the killer's grasp. If you're on a full out cat and mouse game, you can use the environment to leverage you to get away. You can knock down some pallets to stun the killer. You can vault over ledges and windows to escape. Now, the killer can vault as well, but he does it at a much slower pace, and a killer cannot vault over a pallet. He has to destroy it, which takes a lot of time. You can also utilize a flashlight to temporarily immediately blind the killer and help you escape, or even make the killer drop someone he's holding. So there's a ton of tools at your disposal, and honestly, I had just as much, if not more of a blast playing the survivor than I did the killer. As for the killer and its mechanics and its gameplay, to me this was a lot of fun as well, but I do want you to take note, and I'm not exactly sure I can categorize this as a complaint, but it will be something that I'm sure is going to annoy some people. If you play a killer in this game, expect your wait times to be between 3 minutes to 10 minutes at minimum. Keep it in mind there's only 1 killer to 4 survivors, so your wait times are definitely going to be varying, but being a killer in this game is a ton of fun, and it's why there is a wait time. But to start off, there is a bunch of various killers to choose from, each with his or her own skills. You can choose the Trapper, who has the ability to place bear traps around the map and get people caught in them. You can play the Clown, who has the ability to drop poisonous toxins that can slow and blind people. Or you can play as the Wraith, who can stealth and the survivors can't see him, but the downside is when he's coming out of stealth, there's a few second delay. There is 9 choices in the base game with another 6 added as DLC. So there's a ton of choices here, and what I like about this is that while it's not completely balanced, it is for the most part balanced. And how you utilize the killer skill is going to be key, because in my opinion the survivors have a slight edge over the killer in this game, and that's going to be key here. Being the killer in this game and how successful you are as him is going to depend greatly on your own skill. Outside of the power you have, swinging your main weapon and getting the timing right is going to be key. Keep in mind, as the killer you have to play in first person, so you're already in a limited view as to what's in front of you, versus the survivors who are in third person and have a greater wide view. As a killer, you run slightly quicker than a survivor, but it's not a super big advantage. Knowing how to react when a survivor is good at not being caught is going to be key, because if you're stuck running around chasing one guy for more than 30 seconds, everyone else on the map is advancing a generator. Now, I personally was terrible at playing the killer, but I recognized how important it was to not only know the timing of my swings, but being able to look ahead at what the guy I was chasing was doing. Seeing how they were trying to get around me and trying to counter me with their movements and using the environment, I had to counter them by maneuvering around those obstacles and trying to outsmart them with a less predictable path. It's a wonderful game of cat and mouse that, as it lingers, is the advantage to the survivors. Now, when you get your first hit on a survivor, he's going to be limping, and there's going to be a slight delay as you do a mandatory clean your weapon animation. Then you re-chase the survivor. After you get a survivor down with your second hit, you'll pick them up, drag them to the hook, and now you want these survivors to stay on that hook, because they'll slowly die. And with that mentality, knowing that other survivors will want to rescue that person, you can then choose a different set of strategies from here. Go forward and try to stop the people from using the other generators, or stay behind and watch this hook person and try to get the rescuers. Generally speaking, this is the fun of playing a killer, but also the overwhelming part. It's you against 4 people, and you have a lot of choices on how to handle things, and how you handle those things mixed with your skill on chasing and timing your attacks is going to be key to your success as the killer. Overall, I had a lot of fun playing as a killer, and while I completely sucked at it, it was fun. And when I saw other killers flourish and they knew how to play the game so well, I wouldn't be upset if I died, because I knew that person just knew how to play well, and I completely respected it. But the game does feature some under the hood mechanics that give you some outside progression for each match that you play. There is some skill trees for both the killers and the survivors. Each killer, as I explained earlier, has his own skill, but so do the survivors. I like using Claudette because she can heal herself, but some of the other perks from some of the other survivors can be the ability to sprint really fast for a few seconds, or you can choose a survivor who can better repair the generators. There's also a ton of choices you can choose based on what your preferred playstyle is, or even your weakness. I found that I sucked at escaping the killers, so choosing Claudette made a ton of sense, since healing myself was key to survival. The also interesting part is the skill tree is completely randomly generated. You gain perks at random and items at random, and you spend those with blood points. And as your character levels, killer or survivor, you gain the ability to equip the perks, so the game essentially rewards you for grinding out a character and making it the best you can be. I like that, as honestly it helps with your playthrough by giving you a small edge, but nothing felt game breaking or must need at the early levels. Mixed with everything being random, you feel the incentive to keep grinding for that potential rare perk. All in all, the side progression is well done and a great addition to what, in my opinion, is pretty fun gameplay. As for the performance and visuals, this is where the game is getting a ding. First off, the game is plagued with frame rate issues. Heck, just booting it for the first time on the Nintendo Switch, I was worried when just being in the menu alone, you start to see huge FPS drops. The game does not run at 30 FPS, but more consistently actually runs at around 25 FPS. Thanks to Contra Network for running that FPS test on the game so we could see that. But visually, comparing the PC version to the Switch, you can see this just isn't the prettiest game, even on the PC, but it does run smoother over there, and the constant FPS drops on the Switch were just annoying. Now, it's nothing game-breaking. Not once did an FPS drop mess me up as the killer or the survivor, but the game just isn't as optimized as it should be. As for the textures, you can also tell these were toned down in comparison to the PC version. So overall, this was not a positive, but at the same time, it was not unexpected either. In the end, the game just runs good enough and it looks okay enough to where I won't ding this super hard, but I wasn't as satisfied. As for the handheld performance, this looked like another case where it felt it almost ran better here than it did docked. And coincidentally, I had my best killer game on handheld, and maybe that's just because it just felt smoother here. So this gets a plus in my book for the handheld performance. The only other complaint that I really had, which once again isn't really the game's fault, but being stuck with bad teammates can and will ruin your time. I had one game where I honestly felt my fellow survivors were so brand new, they didn't even know what the generator was or what to do with it. They all ran around essentially doing nothing, and I repaired 3 generators on my own, which by the way is a ton of work for one person in one game, and they all ended up dying, and I was left alone. They never contributed anything. So as with any online game that's dependent on other players, your experience may vary from time to time. Overall though, should you buy Dead by Daylight here on the Nintendo Switch? My answer is yes, but I am bummed out to see the price here is at $40, as buying this on Steam is actually half the price. They do have characters you have to purchase with DLC, and even though the Switch version base of the game gives you a bit more characters than the PC version, I was disappointed to see you still had to purchase more characters. I think ultimately if you don't own this on another platform, or if you want to play this handheld, I couldn't recommend the game more just on plain fun alone. This game is a ton of fun, whether you're the survivor or the killer. You'll have a blast. The game, in my opinion, is well balanced, and it makes playing the survivor fun, which is key because if only the killer had all the fun, nobody will queue up as a survivor, and I think that I enjoy the survivor here more than I do the killer gameplay. But the killer gameplay is also a ton of fun. My final score for Dead by Daylight on the Nintendo Switch is a solid 7.5 out of 10, with mostly the issues really coming in the form of the pricing and the performance. Otherwise, this is one of the best games in terms of this type of genre versus, let's say, Friday the 13th. I think you're getting a more balanced and just fun game here. But alright folks, thanks for watching this review, and if you enjoyed this, please consider smashing that like button as it helps others find this review. Sub to the channel if you're brand new and you're wanting to see more game reviews and gameplay videos, and comment down below if this is going to be a game you purchase, if you guys think this game is worth your time. And as always, I hope you all have a sunny day.